Welcome to the Urban Herald. Today, we, as part of the team here, are doing a critical deep dive into something that's really growing into a silent pandemic. We're talking about youth mental health challenges, and there's this statistic that just stops you in your tracks. 1 in 7 adolescents worldwide is living with a diagnosable mental disorder. And it's not getting better.
No, it's not. It's a really stark reality. And our whole digital world seems to be, well, intensifying it. Experts are really sounding the alarm now. They're calling it a social media youth mental health crisis. It's this situation where, chasing likes, that endless scroll, it just seems to trump the basics like sleep, self-esteem, even safety sometimes.
Yeah, that really hits home the idea that these basic foundations are just being chipped away at. So, okay, our mission here today in this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going to dig into why. Why and how do these social platforms seem to amplify psychological distress in teenagers? We'll look at the latest research, definitely. And importantly, explore some actual evidence-based solutions, for families, schools, the tech companies themselves, governments too. This is the Urban Herald team, digging deep, trying to pull out the most crucial insights for you. Okay, so let's start unpacking this. When you look at the research, it's like these alarm bells are just ringing louder and louder. The Kids' Rights Index 2025, for instance, found some really profound things. They're directly linking problematic social media use to rising suicide attempts among 15 to 19-year-olds. I mean, that's more than just a number, isn't it? It's a huge warning sign.
It absolutely is. And to really get the scale, let's zoom out a bit. Over the last, say, 15 years, daily screen time for teenagers, it's doubled, just doubled. And right alongside that, global adolescent depression rates have jumped by a massive 40%. This really is a global mental health crisis for young people. We're seeing record highs in anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide. And, the evidence just keeps piling up. It points squarely at social platforms, things like their hidden algorithms, the constant pressure to compare yourself. It all seems to be a major catalyst. It really makes you think, doesn't it? When did this thing designed for connection become such a source of, disconnection from ourselves?
The timing is striking, too. You mentioned the platforms. Facebook opens up in 2006, then Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. And with each new app hitting big, you see these spikes. Loneliness, body dissatisfaction, cyberbullying incidents, they all go up. What do you make of that? Is it just more time online, or is there something like fundamentally baked into these platforms?
Oh, it's definitely more insidious than just time spent. It's not a coincidence. The way these things are designed, the infinite scroll, the unpredictable, acting like a slot machine, it's all implicated. It feels like they've almost engineered vulnerability right into the digital lives of teens. And that's a design flaw, frankly, that we just can't afford to keep ignoring. And it's really important to be clear here. It's not only about how much time kids spend online, it's more about how they're spending it and what that's actually doing to, their developing minds. The ways it causes harm are complex. They can be subtle, but they're definitely powerful.
Well, let's get into those mechanisms. Starting with this whole comparison culture and body image thing, you hear about the curated highlight reel. It sounds like walking through a digital hall of mirrors, doesn't it? Reflecting these super polished, often totally distorted versions of reality. And this constant comparison based on looks is just profoundly damaging. There are some specific numbers that really make you pause. Like, for teenage girls, heavy Instagram use is linked to a 50% jump in depressive symptoms and a 31% rise in body dissatisfaction. That's huge. This isn't just feeling a bit down. It's a real threat to youth self-esteem. You see it driving eating disorders, confidence plummeting, and it's all amplified by filters and editing tools that create these impossible standards.
And that kind of environment, it just ramps up the intensity of cyberbullying and online harassment. The anonymity factor, the way things can go viral so quickly, it just makes cruelty escalate alarmingly. Think about this. 1/3 of teenage girls report being victims of cyberbullying. And that experience, it doubles their risk of depression. It trebles their stress levels. And so, tragically, cyberbullying is still one of the leading predictors of suicidal thoughts. It's like this digital mob mentality that can leave these deep, invisible scars.
And sticking with those constant pressures, another big one is FOMO, fear of missing out. That endless stream of updates, what everyone else is doing, it creates this really powerful pull. Apparently, up to 60% of teenagers feel FOMO regularly, 60%. And what we're seeing is the kids with high FOMO, the ones scrolling late into the night, they show stronger links between that screen time and anxiety. It fuels this compulsive need to check, messes up sleep. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? A tool supposedly for connection often just makes us feel more isolated. I mean, who hasn't felt that little pang? Like, am I missing out? For teens, imagine that feeling just amplified constantly, online, every single day.
And the sleep deprivation aspect is just critical. It really cuts deep. Get this, 93% of Gen Z admit they stay up past their bedtime just scrolling. And the fallout is serious. Teens getting fewer than 7 hours of sleep a night. They're twice as likely to develop mood disorders. It's not just about being tired the next day. Not enough sleep literally rewires a teenager's brain, making them twice as vulnerable to mood disorders. The biology is pretty clear, too. That blue light from screens, the constant notifications, it delays melatonin production. That messes with memory, decision-making, overall brain function. Sleep is just so fundamental, and it's being sacrificed for the scroll.
There's also the addiction angle. Compulsive use. Brain scans, fMRI studies actually show social media lighting up the same dopamine pathways as substance abuse. That's not just, a casual comparison. It means these apps literally train young brains to crave instant rewards. They shorten these reward loops, which can make it harder to control impulses or focus on longer-term things. And the social media addiction in young people, it links directly to more depression, poorer grades, that endless scroll. It's meticulously designed to hook you. And for young, developing brains, it works terrifyingly well.
And what's really interesting, or maybe worrying, is that while it promises all this connection, it often crowds out real face-to-face interaction. We have long-term data now showing that heavy users tend to have poor skills in things like empathy, resolving conflicts, even just basic conversation. Real-world friendships can shrink as online time grows, leading to isolation, even when surrounded by hundreds of digital friends. There's just no substitute, is there, for actually looking someone in the eye, making that human connection.
And maybe one of the scariest parts is the exposure to harmful content. These algorithms, they're built for engagement, right? Keep you watching. But that means they can accidentally, or maybe inevitably, funnel young users towards really dangerous stuff. Self-harm videos, extremist ideas, pro-anorexia content, sometimes within minutes of signing up. It's a direct result of designing for engagement above all else. It's definitely a positive step that Ofcom, the UK regulator, brought in that 2025 Child Safety Code, making platforms filter this stuff for under 18s. Long overdue, maybe, but welcome. Oh, and that WHO HBSC study from 2024 also found something interesting. Problematic social media use is more common in girls, around 13%, compared to boys at 9%.
You've really laid out those mechanisms of harm so clearly, but it's also vital we understand that not all young people are hit the same way. Certain factors can really make these negative impacts much, much worse.
All right, let's look at that. How different situations make things worse. First off, just being an adolescent means your brain is still under construction, basically. The U.S. Surgeon General points this out. The prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed, so teens are naturally more sensitive to what peers think, seeking approval, while maybe not being great at judging risks. Adolescence is already kind of a minefield emotionally, right? Social media just seems to add, more explosive elements into the mix.
Exactly. And then you have pre-existing conditions. For teens already dealing with anxiety or ADHD or maybe an eating disorder, high levels of scrolling often make their symptoms significantly worse. For them, social media isn't really an escape. It can actually become sort of an echo chamber, amplifying the struggles they already have.
And then there are the wider pressures, socioeconomic factors, cultural stuff. Think about a teen maybe living somewhere with few safe places to hang out offline, or dealing with poverty, or feeling marginalized because of their identity. For them, screens can become the main outlet, often a problematic one. It can increase their reliance on screens and also make them more vulnerable to things like cyberbullying. When good alternatives aren't really available, digital spaces become the default, and sometimes that has really damaging outcomes.
And the evidence for all this, the hard data, it's really piling up now. It paints an increasingly clear and frankly concerning picture of this crisis. It backs up what we're seeing anecdotally.
Yeah, let's touch on some key studies. They really drive it home. That WHO HBSC 2024 study, huge sample, 280,000 teens, 44 countries, found 11% show problematic social media use, higher for girls, as you said, than there was one in the Lancet. Looked at over 10,000 UK 14-year-olds. Found that using social media more than 5 hours a day led to a 50% jump in depressive scores, especially for girls. 50%. A Pew survey in 2025, almost half of U.S. teens, 48%, said social media is mostly negative for their peers. They see it themselves. And an ASM sleep study, American Academy of Sleep Medicine from 2024, looked at kids aged 10-14, found more social media use plus less sleep equals reduced activity in the frontal gyrus. which is basically like the brain's control center, right?
Right.
For decisions, impulse control, critical stuff for navigating life, let alone social media.
Exactly. And these findings, they have really serious implications. It speaks volumes, I think, that Dr. Vivek Murthy, the U.S. Surgeon General, is now calling for cigarette-style health warnings on social media apps. That's a really strong statement about how severe the perceived threat is. And you see ripples elsewhere, too. EU ministers pushing for mandatory age checks, for algorithm reforms.
Yeah, it does feel like maybe the tide is starting to turn towards actually doing something proactive, some regulation.
And while the problem feels huge and the data is, it's pretty sobering, there are solutions emerging. This isn't about throwing away technology altogether. It's more about cultivating a healthier relationship with it for everyone.
Absolutely. And empowering young people themselves is key. Giving them strategies. So for individuals, things like taking a digital detox or just practicing more mindful use. These aren't just buzzwords, there's actual evidence. 2-week detox trials showed amazing results, like 60% of participants cut their addiction scores, felt better mentally. So maybe encouraging experiments with no phone times or even whole days. Then there's actively promoting offline hobbies. That's often the real antidote, isn't it? Rediscovering things in the real world: sports, art, volunteering, just being nature. We need to really champion those alternatives. And critical media literacy, and that feels like such a vital life skill now. Helping teens learn to question what they see online, spot bots, understand how filters manipulate images, recognize influencer ads. And finally, if someone is really struggling, getting professional help is crucial. Things like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy programs like one called Moodhead MindGB, are showing promise for reducing depression linked to scrolling. There's absolutely no shame in asking for help. It's a sign of strength.
And parents, guardians. They play such a critical role in setting the stage for healthier habits. Simple things like making bedrooms screen-free zones, having a firm lights-out time, say 11 p.m. That massively cuts sleep disruption. The temptation to scroll is always there, but taking the device out of the bedroom helps set boundaries. And here's something interesting. Adults who model healthier habits themselves, like averaging less than 2 hours of social media daily, tend to have kids with healthier habits too. It really is about modeling, isn't it? We can't really expect them to do what we aren't doing ourselves. Plus, actually using the built-in tools on phones and apps to monitor usage, and just talking openly about the risks online, fostering that open dialogue.
But the responsibility can't just fall on individuals and families, right? The tech companies have to step up. They have a moral duty to design safer products. So algorithm changes are huge. Ofcom in the UK is demanding designs that actually minimize harmful content exposure, shifting focus from just engagement to well-being. And basic safety tools need to be robust and easy to find. Easy blocking, clear reporting, making profiles private by default for under 16s. These should be non-negotiable right out front, not buried 5 clicks deep in settings. And transparency. This is so important. Platforms absolutely have to share anonymized data with independent researchers. We need that data to understand the real mental health impacts and create effective policies. Without it, we're kind of flying blind.
Exactly. And building on that, government action, policy interventions, they're crucial for making systemic changes. We are seeing some bold moves on age verification, like Australia's under 16 ban idea or Georgia's SB 351 needing parental consent and biometric checks. Now, these are tricky to implement perfectly, sure, but they show a serious commitment to protecting younger users. Comprehensive mental health education in schools is also vital. We need to integrate digital well-being lessons, maybe peer support training, right into the curriculum everywhere, equip kids early with resilience and knowledge. And lastly, we need sustained investment in research. Fund those long-term studies looking at social media's impact on youth mental health. That's how we ensure future rules are based on solid, long-term evidence.
So wrapping this up, the evidence our Urban Herald team has looked at, it's pretty unequivocal. Social platforms, often designed more for engagement than for well-being, are definitely accelerating a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
And adolescents just can't carry that burden alone. It's clearly a heavy burden.
But I do believe genuinely that change is possible. If we combine things mindful use by individuals, open family conversations, demanding responsible design from tech companies, and enacting smart policies, we really can shift things. We can transform these feeds from being toxic triggers into tools that actually enrich young minds instead of eroding them.
Yeah, it's not about demonizing phones or running away from the digital world. That's not realistic. It's about finding a better balance, building resilience in our kids, and demanding accountability from the platforms. Our young people really deserve a digital world that supports their potential, not one that compromises their mental health.
So I think the call to action is clear. Parents, educators, tech developers, lawmakers, we all need to work together, starting now. Limit addictive features, boost digital literacy education, embed mental health safeguards as the default setting, not an afterthought. The future well-being of a whole generation really depends on it.
And maybe just a final thought to leave you with as you process all this. If this current digital landscape keeps shaping young minds in the way it is now, what kind of society are we actually building for the future? And what essential human connections might we be losing, maybe forever, in the process? Thank you for joining the Urban Herald team for this really important deep dive today.